Hello and welcome once again to the How Long to Beat podcast. As always, I am Rick. Alex is Alex.
Hello.
And Paula is Paula.
Ooh.
Maybe that will change in the coming weeks, but not likely. This is 113 episodes of what we presently are. It's not likely to change anytime soon. That clunky intro aside, as always, we are going to be talking about what we've beaten, retired, been playing. Then we're going to move on to this week's topic, which is the current state of Xbox. And as someone's put it in our agenda, Xbox's month of L's, and I couldn't think of a better way to describe that. The danger is we have a bit of a recent track record of really accurate, scary prediction of negative gaming shit.
Yeah, I literally said I think it was last week that Marvel's Midnight Suns would never come to the Switch, and then in the week as we did it, it's like not come to Switch. I was like, shit. I think I could.
Not 2 weeks after us saying E3's dead, and then they announced it. I think as we were recording.
As we were recording, yeah.
So let's not announce.
On the pulse.
As long as we just don't say Arcane or Shuttering, because that would make me cry. And we'll finish off after we've done whatever we do there with everybody's favorite podcast-based, almost pointless game show. How long to beat the game? And let's jump straight into what we've beaten. Alex, you've already beaten Advance Wars.
Yeah, well, the first campaign, I should say, which I counted it as a completion because I'm like, well, it's literally the first game.
So that counts.
I beat the first one. It's not super long. It's only like 24 missions. But it's super fun. So I'll talk more about the second one, obviously, when we get to my playing. But the first one is like a really great introduction to like the whole world and the systems that they do there. You know, there's no real story at all, which really works for this. It's like I feel like with these strategy games, for me at least, if you're gonna have a story, you got to go all out, or just don't have any, and then I'm happy. You know what I mean? Like I don't like the in between-ish stuff. And Advance Wars is like, we know you're not fucking here for this story. You're just here to play some, war game strategy stuff. So have fun. And that's what I like about it. And like all the story that there is basically just like, little flavor text essentially about some of the commanders. That's like, kind of cute, but like very innocuous and doesn't really matter. So like, I don't mind that, I'm like, whatever. Like the characters are kind of fun, and then it helps you like realize who the COs are because they have their own special powers. And so like they do enough to characterize the COs so that you're like, oh, that makes sense why they're this and why they're that. And what's fun is that this first game, you're really playing against a bunch of other COs, and things change a little bit in the second one. And it's interesting because the second is like a direct sequel to the first in terms of like story and stuff, and even mechanically. And so I really understand why they decided to put these two together as a package, because they really make sense one after the other. It's not like, how some games in these series, like for instance, if you packaged a bunch of Fire Emblems together, it wouldn't really make much sense unless it was like maybe like, but like really there's none of them like with intelligent systems with those games, they make like a new game every time, right? Like it's like a totally new area, totally new thing. Whereas this one, there is much more of a through line with them, which is kind of interesting. It might have also been, I don't know, maybe it's what shot them in the foot. I don't know if the DS ones have a through line at all. But it is weird that they sort of just went away. I'm hoping this is going to signal the return of Advance Wars. And like I think it's been selling well enough. I don't really know. But I bought it. So hopefully it's doing good. Anyway, that's Advance Wars. The final mission was kind of a bitch. It was very much, you're like, oh yeah, right, you are the ones who made Fire Emblem. It was just a bit of a slog. Like, how like the final battles in all Fire Emblems are such a slog. Like you're just like, because like they're usually just super long, and like there's some big enemy that you just have to like hit a fucking 100 times, and you're like, oh my god, when does this end? And so that's what it was like. It like wasn't particularly hard. It was more just like, all right, this is gonna take a long time, and then you eventually get there. And I'm sure, like I'm certain, you can get superbly good at it and like find like some optimal strategy to like beat it very quickly. But like, I'm not that guy. Like I'm good enough. So yeah. But anyway, I really liked it. I highly recommend it to anybody who likes strategy games. It's beautiful. It's pretty. The music's fun. The combat is a blast. And yeah, that's that. What about you, Rick? You beat it. Oh, sorry, Paula, you gonna say that?
when you talk about like that person found a strategy to finish the final boss fight like in 2 turns or something like that. I remember my very years with Awakening when because there's a strategy you can do to finish that boss fight in 2 turns without
You're the
like
person I'm
attacking
thinking
like
of.
twice. Yeah, I'm the person you're thinking of. Anyway, sorry for the tangent.
No, not at all. In my head, I'm just going, Alex, you are good enough. You do deserve love. So I have completed one game this week, and speaking of, you picked the worst moment to jump off that, Alex.
What? Oh,
I was
no,
just
sorry.
saying you are good enough, and you do deserve love, and I agree wholeheartedly.
And I ran. Sorry, I'm.
Yeah, no,
for
you
the,
did.
For
You
the
need to hear
listeners,
this.
I'm very sick, as you can tell. So I don't have to get up a tongue. I'm gonna. I have like a different radio voice today, so maybe it sounds sultry. I'm doing my best impression of Avatage.
Accurate.
Right?
Speaking of pretty rough, sloggy sort of final rounds, me and my girlfriend just beat Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order. And it is sloggy. Like the last world, it's over 10 stages, as it were. The last world is just a boss gauntlet. And thematically, it doesn't make sense because it's minor spoiler, it's the Black Order from the box art. But in previous encounters throughout the game, they've turned up as a group and handed it to you. But, you know, when you get to nowhere, they feel like one of them at a time, one Infinity Stone each, it'll be fine. Obviously, it's fine for you. So that felt a bit dumb, but also, like, it's just a lot. And the game, I don't think, has quite enough to justify what you do. I was done with the game, I think, long before I was done with the game, if you see what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not to say that the game's bad. The game is, for what it is, reasonably good. They have a great cast of Marvel characters, even more in the DLC, which I have zero interest in playing, because 2/3 of it are just extra horde gauntlets. There's only actual one component of that season pass that's story content. However, the game itself is reasonably good as a sort of basic brawler. The cast are well done. Synergies make sense and feel good to pull off. There is a lot of micromanaging, which, depending on where you feel and how you want to do, works. I do have to say, I think the game was balanced on the assumption that you would be either playing with 3 other committed people as a 4, and or would be really, really engaging with the very lackluster equipable sort of RPG system in the back end. There are these crystals that are vaguely meaningful to the campaign called ISO 8, and different ones will have, you know, plus 500 strength and durability increased by 4%. It's very, very soulless. And there's not really a tangible benefit. And if there is a tangible benefit, this isn't the kind of gameplay where you're going to be able to tell. So that was a little bit disappointing. And yeah, like overall it was fine, but I don't know that I'm going to think too much about it ever again, having played it. And I think these sorts of experiences are always the hardest ones to get an accurate bead on, because like we've had a lot of fun playing it. It's the reason we finished it. But how much of that was the game and how much of that was like
Just
me and someone that I'm close to?
Other.
Yeah, exactly. The game just facilitated that. To a certain extent, it doesn't really matter. But let's put it this way. I think the next multiplayer thing we're going to hit is A Way Out, because of just how good a time we had with It Takes Two. And I think it's no contest, right? But that is like a true multiplayer experience. This is a game that facilitated an experience, and not a great game at that. I don't know if I've made a whole lot of sense. I feel like I'm very much a ramble at this point in time. I will say, runs pretty well on Switch. Was surprised that Switch held up as well as it did. Like, there's the odd moment of drops, but graphically it looks reasonably good. And there's lots going on screen, lots of effects, and it keeps up. So that was a pleasant surprise. We'll also throw some props out there. I think I mentioned before, in a slightly limited fashion, you can play with a single Joy-Con. There's certain functions that it takes away from you, but it's playable. So very good for sort of a little bit of impromptu multiplayer. Last thing on this game, the camera sucks, like really badly sucks. You can technically set it so that one particular person can control in the loosest possible sense. But one person can have some camera input, or no one can. We most of the time set it so no one can, because when one person did it wasn't really affecting anything. And it was a distraction because your fingers need to be on those face buttons.
Yeah.
I think if you want this kind of game, and you're probably already on it. If you don't, you probably don't. It's yeah, fine. Okay. Enough Marvel. I don't want to think about it anymore. That's it for our completions now. Paula, with a rare retirement, tell us a little bit about the last blah 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 blah. Tell us a little bit about the last Lurst Joy.
So this game I started playing like a long time ago, like a couple of weeks, maybe a month, I don't know. The thing is that I saw Point playing it, and it looks like fun because at least on the first part of the game, you are one of the, if not the last nurse where there isn't that works in a place where there isn't like those automatic machines that heal your Pokemon instantly. So you have to like manually treat the Pokemon so they get better, and you have to fill out a prescription of things they have to do to get better. And the thing is that the first part of the game, it is that, and it is really fun. The second part of the game, it goes into some conspiracy shit, which I wasn't really expecting and I wasn't really looking for. So that's the reason I retired it. Because the fun part of the game, which for me was like figuring out what illness a Pokemon had and having to treat them and giving them the prescription thing and like all the process of killing a Pokemon was the fun part for me. So once the very conspiracy shit started going on, I noped out for a while, and then it was like, okay, maybe I'll give it another chance. Maybe I'll bounce back into the game. No, I bounced off the game, and this is why I retired. I still recommend it because it is a very polished little fun game that was made not so long ago, and it has made like the best of the it can do with the GBA graphics, and the game itself is fun. But you have to know that if you want like some kind of like veterinary, like medical stuff game, you're not gonna find it here all the way through. Like you're only gonna get the real fun part like halfway through the game, and then you're gonna land into some real weird shit, because it was very weird. Like at some point, I was chasing a Ditto, a transforming Ditto, and I had to discover which or who was the Ditto, like what the Ditto was turned into. So yeah, that was weird, and then it got weirder than that, and I was like, yeah, no, bye bye. Why don't I roll into our playings? Because that's the only game anyone retired this week, and it was a rare Paula retirement. But anyways, I swear I'm still playing Chaos Head Noah and Steins and Café Enchanté, but I haven't been playing enough to have something like noteworthy to say about them. Besides, like, there are fantastic games, some more than others, but still very enjoyable. But I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Scarlet because I was playing in the competitive side of Pokemon Scarlet, the double battles, and I forgot completely that at the start of each month, the ladder resets. So I had to climb all the way back into level like 7 because my progress was restarted. So I have to go back and battle some more. There isn't like any. There weren't any changes to which Pokemon you could bring, so I'm still using my team from last season. Because each season the restrictions change. So the first season it was like all Pokemon that wasn't like either the Renus legendaries or the Paradox Pokemon. And then they added the Paradox Pokemon and then they added the Renus legendary. So the meta has been shifting a little bit ever since. So each team now, usually, because mine doesn't, carries at least one of their Renus legendary that usually has some ability that affects, for example, the special attack of all Pokemon on the field, or the defense, or the special defense, or the physical attack. And most people use them because that is hella useful. But usually people don't bring more than one because they kind of like counter synergize each other. So yeah, that doesn't stop people from bringing two and bringing their own game, in my opinion. But that's just what happens. And the other Pokemon that are usually brought into the field are the Paradox Pokemon, usually like 2 per team because they're hella good. And they have an ability which is either Quark Drive or I forgot the other name, but it is pretty much like if there's an electric terrain or the sun is up, depending of the ability, this highest stat of a Pokemon is boosted by, I want to say, the 1.2 if it's any stat other than speed. No, 1.3 if it's a stat other than speed, and like I think it was 1.5 in case if it was a speed. Don't quote me on that. That's more or less the data I manage. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, it would be less than that. But I think those are the numbers. That means nothing to you too because you don't play competitive Pokemon.
Nope, I'm afraid not.
Just wanted to share that. So my team runs just one Paradox Pokemon, which is my Flutter main, which is like mischievous from the past. And it is a glass cannon. Like it is bulky when the special attacks are involved, but it is very fragile whenever physical attacks are involved. So usually it does its job and then says goodbye to the world because it gets, I don't know, it gets utterly destroyed by any physical attack. So it's pretty much like kill or be killed on round 1 if Fluttermane is in the field. I have some very bulky Pokemon to help me with that, but that is neither here or there, and I have bored you enough with the competitive aspect of Pokemon. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the other game that I'm trying to finish before next week, because next week is finally the release date of Tears of the Kingdom, is Fire Emblem Engage. Because I know in my heart of hearts that game is getting abandoned by the newest Chinese Zelda game whenever that comes out. So I'm in chapter 19, I think. 19, yeah. I'm there. And I I'm also playing all the paralogs of the game, so I finished Roy's paralog, which, by the way, it was very easy until I got to Roy. That fucker really hits like a track, and also
Sure does.
he has an ability that allows you to allows him to survive with 1 HP, and he can trigger like each time. Like the bosses in this game have a revival stone, so once you kill them, you have to kill them again. So for each life, quote unquote, he can trigger his ability and remain with 1 HP. Which means Paula didn't notice, and I almost lost a unit to Roy because I didn't quite calculate that in my plan. Still managed to beat him, so I unlocked like the I think it was like levels 11 to 20 or something like that on the event thingy. And I have to play, I think the next one for me is Mikaya. Yeah, that's the other one I recovered. So I'm at that part of the story. I'm recovering my emblem rings, and I have like 3 or 4 left, I think. Maybe 4, yeah. And still, the game has been very fun for me, and there's like a lot of terrain gimmicks that I found like very entertaining, except for the one of the desert that was kind of bad. But otherwise, the maps has been phenomenal. Like I have to actually sit and think like what my next move is gonna be because of how the unit composition is on the other side of the field. Which, by the way, I think it is heavier on the flying units.
There's so many.
Like, I have a feeling that there's a lot of flying units, but for some strange reason the Wyverns don't count as a flying unit. They count as a dragon unit, so they're not weak to bow and arrow as the Pegasus Knights are.
Yeah, aren't they weak to magic? Isn't that their thing? I can't remember. It's like something like that, isn't it?
They aren't weak to magic per se. They are more susceptible to magic because their resistance isn't as good as their defense.
Susceptible, weak. All right. Tomato.
That is not the same.
Well, I mean,
because when they're weak,
hit them with
they
magic,
get
they
like
go day.
triple of magic damage. Yeah, but it is not the same. Like, technically, if they're weak to something, they get like triple the damage they usually get.
Sure. I was still gonna say magic make them go
staying out of this one.
I'm a number maniac. Things have to be discussed like with the correct terminology for it to work. Anyway, what else have I been doing with Fire Emblem? Oh, I didn't try out the multiplayer because I am a turn friend and I forgot to put in the code and do my turn. So, but I discovered like a lot of stuff on Somniel because I was just running around. Oh yeah, another thing is that, and this is like just a cute little thing, is that the characters in Somniel will say happy birthday to you on the day of your birthday, which, by the way, it was yesterday for me, May the 6th. And I was just running around trying to talk to everybody to see like what silly line they had. And I discovered that there was like a cave with a mascot character that you can pet and get like
Wait, you didn't know about that guy?
I didn't know because I didn't walk around Somniel like all that much. I just used the quick access menu to get to all the places that I want to go to. So I didn't really see the mascot character until yesterday, which was a nice surprise because it is hella cute. I don't think I'm gonna be going there like all that much because like it's just a silly thing, and
Well,
I'm
you
like,
keep him
I
leveled
just
up,
want
you
to
get a
keep
shit ton of bond fragments from him.
Really?
Yeah, he gives you
Maybe
tons of
I'm
bond
just
fragments.
going.
I would get tons every single day. He's like the easiest way to get a bunch of bond fragments for getting rings and stuff and for upgrading them.
Oh,
And then if you do
maybe I'm
activities
just
or
gonna
anything,
go.
he can assist you in the activities.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I see. I was exploring the Somnial a bunch, which is probably what tired me out. Maybe that actually explains why you didn't get so exhausted by the game. I was doing a bunch of that stuff on the side, which I'll admit, like in hindsight, might not have been the best approach. Well, it wasn't for me at least.
Yeah, and for I usually don't go to all the optional shit on Fire Emblem games. I like the Fire Emblem Fates. You had the My Castle mechanic, and the most that I did was like build out, get out the buildings, and then just frequent the armory, the item shop, and the forgery, and the restaurant, because the restaurant would give me bonuses for the next battle. So that's all about all the things I did, and maybe that's the reason why I don't like Three Houses as much, because I just want to go from battle to battle to battle.
This is why you would like Advance
And
Wars. This is why you would like Advance Wars. It's like right up your alley.
I probably have to. I have to eventually jump into Advance Wars, but
Have you played
the
Wargroove?
backlog, and
I can't
also
remember.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, you'll be away for about 3 months.
So yeah, that is, I think, everything about Fire Emblem Engage for now. Rick, why don't you tell us what you've been playing?
Yeah, go on then. I'll jump in. So I'll be honest, it's been a pretty quiet week for me in the sense that I've not made too much progress on anything. So I'm still reading Myst, the Book of Atrus, in the sense that I'm still in the middle of it. I haven't made any real progress on that. I'm still playing FF7 Remake. I've maybe played another hour of it. I've gotten to Aerith, and not really any further. Which I think is about where I was last week when we talked about it, to be honest, but I'm not sure. I've played a little bit more of Radiant Historia and Aliens Infestation, both on the DS. I think they're both still fantastic. I haven't played any more of Taiko no Tatsujin, but now that Marvel Ultimate Alliance is off the Switch, that frees me up for some Taiko action in between other things. The main thing I've been playing this week is GrimGrimoire OnceMore, the Switch remaster, and I think I'm maybe 3 or 4 levels away from the end. I'm really, really enjoying this package as a whole. The HD remaster job they've done is fantastic. They've clearly made a lot of effort to add in the extra bits in terms of mechanics and combat and stuff. There's a lot of care with the extra details in the bookshelf between levels in terms of the tactical guides that it gives you, the extra information it puts at your fingertips should you want and need it. The interesting thing, I think, coming to this now is up until yesterday, I was ready to come to this and say the downside of all these extra additions is that they make the game quite easy once you get a few of the upgrades up your belt. I'm going to revise that and tell you that the difficulty curve for this game is more like a U, in the sense that there's a period at the beginning where you're getting used to the systems, wrapping your head around the different character types and archetypes, and how their interplay with each other functions. Once you get your head around enough of that, the game becomes quite easy and gets easier as you put some of those extra points into the abilities, particularly if as I've done so far, you do all of the optional objectives for missions, which give you more points to go towards that skill tree. But once you get to the 5th sort of set of levels, which I believe is the last set, The first couple of levels get hard. It's like, all right, you know what you're doing now. Let's get the big guns going. We're talking multiple factions to fight against simultaneously. We're talking optional missions that really hamstring you and ask you to stretch your forces. There's an interesting unit type that becomes available called Charon, who very appropriately allows you to ferry enemies and even occasionally runes from one location to another, which makes both you and your enemies much more threatening, much more quickly. I think the real success of this game is that all of this still feels accessible and controllable. And your defeats feel like your fault rather than not being able to control things quickly enough, or not having enough screen real estate, or enemy placement just being bullshit. It does feel quite well tuned on the whole. It's always very clear what units can do, what they're strong against, what they're weak against, and the game, even at the beginning of each level, has an option that you can click into to view tips for that particular battle and what you might want to look out for and attempt to do. I have to say, combat's okay. The story is really good. And that's definitely what's kept me hooked and sort of having all my attention focused in on this game, wanting to see how the crazy story they've got going is going to resolve itself. I have no doubt I'll have this finished for next week, so I'll probably save a little bit more gushing and a little bit more discussion for then. There are definitely caveats to this game. There are definitely some trade-offs that you have to bear in mind with what they're doing with it. And I suppose on that note, it is just fascinating that this game did get the remaster treatment. I always thought that a game like Princess Crown would get it first. One, because it never got a Western release, and two, because it's a bit more of a conventional game. It's a bit closer to what Vanillaware are mostly known for in terms of really tight 2D action. But hey, maybe that'll be next. I hope that'll be next. And that brings me through all of my currently playings, which just leaves you to tell us about what you've got going on, Alex.
Yeah, I don't have a lot going on either. This week we got hit by a heat wave very, very weirdly. We were over 30 degrees this week. For you Americans, figure it out.
Lol.
Because I don't know, the rest of the world we all do Celsius. But it was hot as balls. It was hotter than Hawaii, which is a little insane, right? I'm like, what the hell?
Just a little.
That place is supposed to be hot. So anyway, I was enjoying the sun a little bit, doing that. So I didn't get as much gaming in, but I have still been playing a lot of Advance Wars because again, I play the Switch on my commute, and it's still fucking great. I don't have a ton to say about it, but I'll try to mine the depths here a little bit. So I beat the first one, and it was fun. Remember, last year, I got that big collection of strategy guides for really cheap. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of them was Advance Wars 2. So I was like, well, shit. I wonder if it'll work. And it does still work for the game. That being said, they have made changes. Because I've noticed that when I look at the game and I look at the strategy guide, certain enemy placement and certain units and certain ways that things are done have been slightly rearranged, I think, to offer maybe just a tiny bit more of a balance. That or there was a misprint or something, but I don't think so. It's a Nintendo Power one, so it's pretty official. And so I assume they had the exact right thing. But it does seem as though they have done very, 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 and I'm talking minor adjustments, nothing insane here. When you look at it, for the most part, it all functions. And what's fun about it is it's what you just said about GrimGrimoire. It's basically just hey, here's, because they can't tell you exactly what to do, right? The strategy guide's not do this, 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 and this. It's hey, here are 3 goals that you should have for this map. And here's one way that you could kind of do it. You should make maybe these types of units first, then you should make your second priority this thing, and then this should be your third priority, and then figure it out. And I kind of love it because it feels more like a mission briefing than it feels like an actual, you know what I mean? I still have to figure out how to do it with each one of them, but it's really nice to have a game that like a little guide that just gives you the try this first and then go from there. And that to me is kind of fun because it actually feels more like I'm being briefed on a mission than I am just being thrown in blind.
And it gives you some confidence, right? Because you're focused more on the how than the what, and that's where the fun is, really.
Exactly, because it's a strategy game, right? The fun is, how am I going to do this? And for me, the fun of those games is never figuring out how to like figuring out what I have to do. It's the figuring out like, how do I do this the best way possible. So that's been super fun. I've been really enjoying it. Plus, it's so beautiful. Like, it's so well put together that like I just love opening up and being like, okay, got it, let's go. The second one is like vastly better than the first, and not to say that the first is bad at all. I just mean that like they really upped their game in the second one.
Okay.
In the sense that like in the first one you play against a bunch of different, like, you know, Green Earth, Blue Moon, Orange Sun, Black Star, I think it is. Yeah. So there's a bunch of these, like, they're all color based countries essentially, and so you're in this new like continent basically for the second one. But in the first one, you play against all those COs because there's like someone in the dark who's like, you know, trying to pit everyone against each other. But then in this one, you actually get a chance to play as the COs that you fought against and some new ones, which is really nice. Because like that first one, you know, you're just the three COs of your kind of like home country. And that's the only people that you get to play as. And also, like, with the mission structure of the first one, sometimes you'll have missions where it's like you get to choose between 3 mission options. And those choices are basically you choosing between the different COs, right? Like, you can either do this one, or this one. And they are different missions because your COs are different, but they're often fairly similar. And then once you beat that mission, those other 2 will disappear and you just keep going forward. I think when you beat it completely, you can go back and play the ones you didn't do. But in Advance Wars 2, they were just kind of like, why do that? Why not just have a bunch? So like in the first one where there was 24, there's 34 missions in this one. And so you'll get to a new area and there'll be 3 missions open, one for each different CO, and you can play them in any order you want. And then also there are like secret hidden things, like if you find certain intel or something in a map, you might unlock a new mission, which can actually give you tangible rewards. And I mean like some serious goddamn rewards. In the game, like you can get like a new unit that is unreal. So thank you, Strategy Guide, because I don't think I would have found it without it. But yeah, it's super fun so far. Again, it might be I can't tell if it's a bit easier than the first one or if I'm just better at the game at this point. You know what I mean? It's hard to tell. I'm also in the opening levels, right? Like I'm probably a little less than halfway through the game now. Like I think I'm on mission like 14 or 15, something like that. And I've been plowing through the missions pretty quickly, but I'm enjoying it. I'm gonna play it. Like I have a strong feeling I'm gonna beat it before Tears of the Kingdom comes out, because I'll just beat it on my commute this week, and then I'll play that. Though I'm not that excited for Tears of the Kingdom, weirdly enough. I'm like, I've sort of purposely not put myself into Paula's heartbreaks. No, it's not that. It's just Breath of the Wild's never been my favorite kind of Zelda. Like it's amazing. It's just not my favorite kind of Zelda. 2D Zeldas are better.
No, I'm with you. That's yeah.
It's like, listen, is it undeniably one of the best games ever made? Duh. Like, I'm not making that argument. It's just like Zeldas are some of the best games out there ever, and I'm just a person who is more partial to the 2D experience than the 3D experience. And so I'm going to play this game and I'm probably going to love it. It's just, I'm not like crazy jazzed about it. You know what I mean? I'm not just like, I need this thing now. When I saw these building mechanics in it, I went, fuck. I don't want to fucking build shit. That's just me. Like, I'm just like thinking to myself, like, God damn it. I'm going to fiddle around with that shit now for an hour. I'm an old man. That's for the youngins. But the youngins are going to make cool shit.
I don't relate, but I kind of do. Like,
right? When I saw it, I went, What is this shit? Fortnite? I was like, get Fortnite out of my Zelda.
I saw the building mechanics and I was like, well, it seems I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time on this.
Yeah. And that's why I was like, no, I don't want it. I don't want to spend all that time on it. Get Fortnite out of my Zelda. Yeah, that's definitely the title of this. Like, look, listen, I'm gonna be real. Like, the one thing about Zelda that I was sort of missed was like the complex dungeons and shit. And then I was like, Oh, you're putting in building mechanics to it? Okay.
The fun part, Alex, is you get to decide how complex your solution to the puzzle can be.
So fucking easy. That's that's the problem, right? Like I know myself. I'll just be like, all right, let's put this fucking fan on this one log and I'll stand on it. I don't want to dig around. Anyway. But you know, it's Nintendo. They'll surprise us. It'll be the best building mechanics we've ever seen in our lives, and it'll revolutionize building mechanics because that's Nintendo. So you know, I'm just like, I hope that's what happens. I hope it's not like, well, this is something. Anyway, probably a baseless fear though. So other than that, I've been playing Resident Evil 4, more of that. Hardly though, to be honest. I actually was planning on playing more tonight. Because again, I'm also sick, so I haven't really been like, you know. Also, I gotta say, I love Resident Evil 4 so much, but it's not really the game you play after work and you're trying to relax. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of stressful, right? Like, so I sit down and like multiple times this week I've sat down and I've booted up Resident Evil 4, and after like 5 minutes I was like, I can't fucking do this right now. I'm like too keyed up, you know, like it would just like, which is a testament to how good the fucking game is, right? Like the game is very like, it's hardcore. It's just like, that's just not the vibe I was looking for at that moment, you know? So I haven't done that. Yeah. It's tough, right? Like, cause you know, I don't know. It's also hard because I've found lately, like, I'll be honest, I've shifted a little bit my priorities, even gaming wise, right? Like, especially because I have my hobbying now, right? Like I do all my miniatures and stuff, and I'm at the moment in my life where I'm trying to get as much of the miniature shit done as I possibly can, because I know that there'll come a time in my life where I will not have the time to do that, but I will probably have the time to bust open a game for a couple minutes. You know what I mean? So I'm just like,
I get it. It's an interesting angle, but I get it.
Well, again, you know, realistically, I'm probably going to have kids at some point. Not in super close future, but it's coming in the next few years, you know? Life's getting feels shorter and shorter every year. Gotta prioritize shit. But anyways, I haven't really done much more Moonscars, to be honest, because again, I'm doing my Switch right now, so it's like been swapping out with the Steam Deck. But you know, actually, it's probably a good game to start playing more of while I'm sitting on the couch. We'll see how far I get into it. Knowing you retired, it has made going to play it a little less enticing.
I'm very curious. I maintain what I said last week. I think you'll probably have a better time with it than I did.
Yeah. I think I have a weirder amount of tolerance for that shit, you know? But we'll see. So yeah, you know, I been playing a ton of stuff, but like at the same time, it's like I play every single day, right? It's just I've been playing Advance Wars, right? So that's that's sort of the difference. It's hard to find, and you know, as folks know, I am a high school teacher at this point now, and actually, I got good news this week. They hired me for next year.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah, so that's pretty sick. I'm officially a high school English teacher too, which is not what I expected. I went for social, but you know what? English is pretty fun, honestly. Can't complain. Plus, my mom taught English for like 30 years, so works out. Anyway, that's kind of it for me. I don't think, Paula, you haven't touched Moonscars, right?
I haven't even started Moonscars.
That's fair.
I did install it, but I'm sorry, I haven't started it.
Gotta finish Citizen Sleeper first.
I'm sorry.
Called out hard there. I should just make my game of the month Tears of the Kingdom.
I mean, the problem there is I'm not paying £70 for Tears of the Kingdom.
I
haven't even played Breath of the Wild yet.
I don't feel like you have to. Like, what fucking story is there in Zelda? Like,
yeah, I know, but still.
Yeah, like
the worst thing is, like,
3 guesses what happens in that game.
I've played the start of Breath of the Wild, and I'm gonna have to do it all over again because that was on someone else's Switch.
That's not a big deal. It's a good game.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed what I played of it. I'm just not like chomping at the bit to go back to it. It's not like a priority game.
Yeah.
Just gonna say, in case anyone wants like a recap for Breath of the Wild, Nintendo did a like 6-minute recap on their official channel.
Which should tell you something.
But Celtic went and did an hour and something recap, which was amazing.
You do not need a fucking hour recap for Zelda Breath of the Wild. The fuck were they even talking
You do if you want
about?
to remember where all the Korok seeds were.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But like a story recap that's an hour long? The fuck were they talking about? The like cutscenes don't
talking
even
about
total an
the-
hour.
I mean, they were talking about like the events prior to Breath of the Wild, like
Of
100 years before, like the whole battle that took place.
Right. So
Then they talk about like the time in between, and then they went and talk about the Breath of the Wild itself.
yeah, which was probably like 15 minutes. listen, and like no shade. I love Breath of the Wild, but like we're not here for the fucking story, right? Like that's not it's Zelda in general. We're not here for the story. Like, you know, the story is always fine.
Old claim.
I will stand by that shit hard. Like, I don't know, name me one Zelda that has like a story that like stands above the best of the genre, and there's just nothing. Like
Wands of Gamelon.
Oh, that's the one. You know what? I stand corrected.
Now that you say what's up, Camilo, there was what was the third CDI game called? Something of Zelda, The Adventure of Zelda.
Yeah.
Someone demade it.
Oh yeah. I heard about that. I actually want to play that. That actually looks fun. They like turned it into a Game Boy. They turned it into a Game Boy Color game.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Which is like right up my goddamn alley. Like I would honestly like I saw that and I was like, you know what? Straight up,
fair.
I'll probably play that.
Madness.
Yeah. Anyway, not throw shade at Zelda. It's just like Zelda is all about that the gameplay, you know, and that exploration and that fun, that wild sense of discovery. It's also probably why I've bounced off, though. I mean, this is more just probably a me thing, but I think other gamers, Rick, I think you're sort of like me a little bit like this, and others too. It's like I think I've bounced off a lot of the story heavy Zelda games like Ocarina and Majora's Mask. They've just never done it for me. I have beaten Ocarina, but I've just it's been impossible for me to beat Majora's Mask. I just find it very bad. That's just, you know, like it like for me.
Like pitchfork.
I know, but I don't think I'm alone. Like, there's a lot of people who really bounced off Majora's Mask, and I love Majora's Mask because it was adventurous and because it took risks and because it decided to do something different. So like, I theoretically really love it. I love the idea of it, but then in practice, I'm like, I don't like this.
I just don't think Ocarina's aged as well as people think it has. I think that's my core problem with it. Like, even the 3DS remake, it had problems. Like, that overworld is so dead and dull and dry, and the rest of it just wasn't working for me. I don't necessarily think it's the story side of it.
Sorry, what was that, Paula?
Oh, in my opinion, Majora's Mask aged way better than Ocarina of Time just because of how lived in the world felt in comparison.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that point that you're saying there. I found it aged about as poorly as Ocarina did, but like, sure. Sorry, I had nothing there. I'm so sick right now.
That was fucking brutal.
I was
Who
trying
hurt
to
you, Alec?
I was my cold hurt me. That's who hurt me. I know. I feel so bitter today. I don't know why. I think it's my cold. Don't worry, everybody. If you love it, love it. That's wonderful. But anyway, I will say, I will say though, I think you're right, Paula, that it is it's the most beautiful of the ones from back then. Like in terms of like Ocarina and like some of the older, like I would even argue like stylistically, I like it even more than games like Twilight Princess. It's just more fun in that sense. Like those freaky weird god things that hold up the moon. That's some bitchin' design.
So that's the end of our Zelda segment.
Yeah. Why don't we move on to more cynicism by talking about Microsoft's L's over this past month.
From the Legend of Zelda to the Legend of Xbox.
Yeah. Well, Froy, I think, asked if we were going to talk a little bit about what's been going down with Xbox lately. And I was like, well, we shall now.
Mm.
So thank you for the suggestion, Froy, and anyone who wants to suggest stuff too. Like I think we'll I know that Nald was talking about maybe doing a game of the month because they're at 100 months now, which is fucking crazy. Actually, that's like 8 years and 2 months or something like that. It's a long time that game of the month's been going on. So we should do something on that eventually. But yeah, Xbox has been having some big ol' L's lately. There was, a while back, there was that report about like the amount that Game Pass was like losing out on, like by being on Game Pass, there's like a lot of, you were like losing a ton of sales or something, which I sort of thought is a nothing burger. It's like fucking duh. That's like saying that putting a thing on streaming loses DVD sales, like obviously. But it's like, do you know what I mean? Like I was like, I don't think that's a story. That's just like, that's the business plan.
It's a reason that Xbox pay the devs to put the games on there. It's because that's money they're not making from direct sales.
Exactly, right? I was like, why are we talking about this still? Like, a fucking course, that's what it is. Like, come to me if they're like losing shit ton of money or something. But even then, it's such a weird argument anyway, because it's like, they're not guaranteed to make those fucking sales, right? Like, those are projections. Like, how many times do game companies project that they're going to sell like 500 million and then sell 100 million and are like, what? And I'm like,
Square Enix.
Yeah, right. It's fucking Square Enix all the time. I was watching a good video
specifically with Western games.
Yeah, right. And so I'm just like looking at this, like, guys, like, you take the money up front because you get that money.
Yeah. Same as Epic does for the freebies.
Exactly, right. It's like, yeah, that's why you do this, because it's big old cash money in your pocket, right there, no questions asked. So I don't know. I think that's a bit overblown, to be honest. But then they had that big L from the UK with fucking, which I'll be honest. Like, listen, I'm not particularly fond of the idea of Microsoft buying a bunch of companies and shit. Like, I don't love the idea of companies doing big acquisitions anyway. But this one made zero sense to me in any way, shape, or form. So like they blocked the deal because they cited that it would reduce competition for cloud gaming.
So the idea behind it, as I understand it, is because Microsoft have such an advantage in that space already with Microsoft's Azure tech and with the head start they have with Game Pass, that is an emerging area of the gaming market, and them having such a big stable of IPs all at once to boost that platform specifically could stymie development. I think it's a little bit tenuous. I think
it's bullshit.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I think it's absolutely surprising that that's where it ended up happening.
I just feel like there are stronger. Anyway, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. There's stronger arguments, but I think they all boil down to the same thing, right? Which is that gives Xbox a huge advantage. I suppose the only interesting thing is that as things go presently, you could very much argue that they desperately need it.
That's what I mean. I'm like, it's so funny, right? Like they talk about this huge advantage and I was like, bros, do you guys know anything about the gaming industry? Are you sure?
I mean, some of that is just that they are doing a terrible job of leveraging the existing IPs they have. Like the only good thing that I can think that they've done with that is the Rare Replay collection, and to a lesser extent, Xbox backwards compatibility. But in terms of selling that stuff again, in terms of, what Nintendo do, where they have these little games out of nowhere that come and pop up. And yes, you have your big Zeldas and your Marios, but they'll also, randomly be a Star Fox or a Metroid or a Pikmin. So you're leveraging that stable of properties. Sony used to be better at it than they are, but I think that's where Xbox have really been terrible, because Halo, absolute disaster. Conker, haven't heard of him in forever. They're not really doing anything that way.
It did well. It's just, it wasn't incredible. Like I played the game and I played quite a bit of multiplayer at the beginning, and it's not bad. It just hasn't been like crazy supported.
I mean commercially rather than critically, and I will push back on that a little bit, because they wanted this to be a big, like, microtransaction live service money spinner in the long haul, and the reality is they just did not support the multiplayer in a way that would make that possible.
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
So it ended up being this flash in the pan that let's remember, took 18 months longer than it was supposed to release because of the awful state of the development. So there's a degree of mismanagement behind that as well. And crikey, does that not half stem into Redfall? Which,
I gotta say too, one more thing
Yeah.
before we jump into Redfall, because the Blizzard thing that to me seems so weird is that they talk about the idea, right, of like how that could, like you just said, like shore up, or the argument that it's going to give them way more IPs and stuff. And I was like, half of the IPs they're getting from them are like multiplayer games, and in what world do we think that cloud gaming is targeting multiplayer games online? That's insane. Like, the whole point of that shit is like a lack of lag and stuff. You can barely run those games like online on your own system itself. Like, anyway, I'm just sitting here eating popcorn going like, this is interesting. But realizing I know so little about the business world of this shit, because I'm just like, really? Like, you guys can just block this shit? I'm like, okay, cool.
and the answer is, yeah, they genuinely can, which is kind of crazy. Like,
it is quite crazy. Like, honestly, I was like, that's kind of wild. Like, I'm like, and I can't tell how I feel about it, honestly, because I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess, like, I don't want capitalism running too amok, but then I'm also like, should the government just be allowed to just say like, no? I'm like, what kind of like bribery are we getting into here now at this point? So it's just it's a very interesting thing. But Redfall,
it's a fascinating turn of events. Yeah, Redfall.
what a fucking nightmare that is, huh? I called this shit so early. I remember when I saw this game, I was like, no way. There's no way. It's just no way this is gonna be good.
Say I kind of forgot it existed until like a couple of months before launch, and I feel like I've only heard negative things about it the whole way through.
Yeah.
We should obviously preface this by saying, despite the fact that it's on Game Pass, I don't think any of us here have touched that game.
No, I'm not
Nope.
touching it.
No,
I was never
and
going to touch
not
it
touching
anyway.
it. Nope, no, me neither. So all of this is coming
I also
second,
should
third,
say,
fourth hand.
I do think that, like, yeah, it's definitely bungled. It's definitely like a bad launch, and it looks like shit. But I'm also like, I do feel a little bit like this was a problem that they inherited, and that I'm wondering
Yeah,
behind the scenes, like if they maybe were a little too hands off, because that's what I'm
maybe.
curious about. Like, did they really like push to have this come out, or were they just kind of like, well, we'll let you finish this up? Because for me, I truly believe the real test to see if this shit's gonna sink or swim is when Starfield releases. Because if that shit releases and it fucking sucks, that I don't know, man. That's fucking it. Like, I'm like, what are you gonna fucking do at that point? Like, I truly think that's going to be the big litmus test for Microsoft, because that would be too big of an L. Because that's the big thing that people are waiting for, right? Like, I have no real loyalty. Like, I love my Xbox and I play the shit out of it, and like I still think that in terms of like value and whatnot as a gamer, it's way up there for me. But I'm also an odd individual who has tons of ways to play just about everything I want, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not hurting, so like, there's no real reason for me to go run out and get a PlayStation or something, because like, Game Pass and shit, I've got my Steam Deck and all that other stuff, my good PC. So it's like, I'm in an odd place, but like, I can't help but say like, holy hell, boys, you guys are you're hurting right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'd even necessarily say that, yes, Starfield is going to be a much bigger thing, but I think Redfall's a test in and of itself, because even if you're taking a hands-off approach, you still have to be checking that even if you're not getting involved in the baking, you have to taste test the bread before you put it on the shelf. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if it's getting close to the end and you see the state that game is in, yes, you've sunk some money into it, but it's not worth the reputational hit you take to put it out. And whoever has seen that game and said, ship it anyway, there is a fundamental problem there. Say what you want about Ubisoft, but I can't remember the name of it. There was it the newest Ghost Recon? And they'd announced it, and it was like close to release. They just canned it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that sucks. But if it was going to suck, that's the right decision. It's a tough decision, but it's the right decision.
I know.
And I think
yeah.
that's a point of concern. One, that maybe people aren't just feeling confident to do that or aren't wanting to do that. Or two, they've got so little in the pipeline,
They have to push the
you
shit
just
out.
got to release it. It just has
Yeah.
to go out because otherwise nothing's coming out. Which, to be fair, broadly speaking, was the case in 22. You had a couple of smaller things, games that did really well critically. Games like Grounded, which I know is a big hit for friend of the podcast, Matt, aka Cock, but nothing that competes on the level of a new Zelda game or a new God of War. Nothing that stands on that level and is the standard bearer for your console, your ecosystem, your service, and that's what they're really hurting for. My worry is that Starfield will end up doing a similar thing, that it gets pushed out come hell or high water, and it can't make it happen.
I'm also wondering though, like, I don't know if they need tentpole games like that. Like, because I really don't think they do. Like, because look, out of all of us here, I own an Xbox, so like I bought
Yes.
into it, and that's not why I bought an Xbox. Like, I actually didn't buy it because I wanted all the big. I was like, oh, Microsoft's gonna have the best exclusives and stuff. I wasn't really interested in that. I was more interested in the fact that I would have a wealth of games to play. And I think that is Microsoft's even strategy with this. And I won't be surprised if they work on Redfall quite a bit and, brush it up to something that's a little more presentable.
It's too late.
I don't. Look what Cyberpunk did, bro. Never too late.
Yeah, that game did sell 16 million copies first, though.
Yeah, on a lot.
And it wasn't relying on a multiplayer,
But they don't need to
it wasn't
sell
relying
any
on people
copies of
playing
this game.
together.
It's just on Game Pass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes and
Like,
no.
like Cyberpunk to me, it sold all those copies on like a blatant lie, and then
Fair.
returned a bunch of those. Like, so because once they had that, a ton of them were returned, and then they worked on it, and then it became good, and then people bought it again, and like, I could see them doing that or just shuttering it. Like, it's up to them. You know what I mean? Like, they, you can go either route. I personally think the route of just shuttering it would be a better call and just let Arcane work on something more interesting. Because this honestly, this game, I think the most sad thing about it is this game reeks to me of just like a cynical studio mandate to get something that can make them some money, before they got bought by Microsoft. And so it honestly, to me, feels a little bit like they should have just come in and been like, you don't have to make that fucking game anymore. You know what I mean? Like, stop making that fucking game. Go make something else.
I think that, to go back to what we were saying about do they need those sort of tentpoles, in one sense, from the game subscription model, totally take the point. It's not necessarily fundamental to that. But in terms of hardware sales and the mind share that's consequent with that, it is a massive thing. So the numbers that they were publishing this week are that hardware sales are 30% down on last year. That's 2 and a bit years into a brand new console cycle. That is concerning because reading between the lines, that is now that PS5s are a little bit more available, people are getting that instead, or now that people are seeing what's on the docket, people are picking the other side. And then you combine that in with what some developers are saying about the Series S and mandates on performance for that are hamstringing other platforms. To the extent that that's true, I think it all paints a pretty bleak picture taken as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I see what you're saying. I feel like their strategy that they're going for is just very different than a lot of that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're going for the less of a platform strategy and more of the Game Pass in general strategy. Which like
maybe
because like with PC and whatnot, like they just have so many different avenues to go through. But like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I haven't been upset with it. Do you know what I mean? Like I've just been doing my sort of thing. But they've always been in that separate area, right? Like I don't know. I think the more that they try and be a big tentpole, release or whatever kind of company, like that's just, to me it seems at least like a misguided way of doing it, because that's just you got other companies who are already great at that, right? It's like find your niche and fill it. And like the Game Pass niche, to me at least, is like such a valuable and interesting one that no other company is doing even remotely as well as them. And that's the one thing that hasn't changed, at least. Like I still play a lot of Game Pass games. I gotta check my subscription actually. I wonder when that goes up. I think it's in September or something like that. Whatever, I got time. But yeah, I don't know. Paula, what do you think? You've been a little quiet.
Yeah, I don't have like a lot of stuff to say about all the L's Xbox has been taken. Besides that, I don't think like neither the Redfall situation or the Blizzard Activision thingy are gonna like make Microsoft take like a huge hit on sales or anything. But I feel like if it's a situation that keeps going on in the sense of that the exclusives that Microsoft have or like the IPs that Microsoft have keep on being released like halfway baked and being finished like as they go, like as a live service game, people are gonna start like losing a little bit of faith on Microsoft, but people will still be paying, for example, for Game Pass because, well, I'm not gonna buy the game like day one for like $70. But maybe the game will be better with time, and it's like paying for a live service game in that regard. So I don't know. It is a weird situation, but still, I don't think like Microsoft is gonna be like too worried as time goes on. Like I still have a Game Pass, as Alex says. I'm not paying Game Pass for the Xbox exclusives. I'm paying Game Pass because I have a huge amount of games that I can enjoy at my leisure. And some of the games that I'm interested in that are indie games get released on Game Pass, and maybe they wouldn't have the attention that that they would have like without Game Pass, for example. Like what was the last indie game that I saw released that was like, oh, that looks cool. I haven't played it, but it was cool. Pentiment.
Oh, so good. Love Pentiment.
The game looks dope, but I feel like not nearly the amount of people that play it would have played it without it being on Game Pass. So
well, that's the thing. They've actually released a bunch of good games. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. They release a bunch of good games, even though they aren't like the ones making the games. So you still have value if you purchase Game Pass.
It's interesting because I actually think maybe the bigger thing that they need to be worried about is that, like, look at Netflix now, right? Like, streaming has taken over in terms of television. It's everywhere, right? Like, every company's doing it. There are tons of them now at this point who do it. They're taking the lion's share of Netflix's revenue. I don't have a Netflix subscription anymore. I quit the thing because they did the password lock crackdown in Canada, and they're rolling it out in the rest of the world next year. And you're gonna see, I think, a sharp decline in subscriptions if that happens. Because I literally just pirate their shit now. I'm like, fuck you. I don't want to fucking pay for your stupid thing. And I have a feeling we'll see the same thing happen in the gaming space. Truly, I think these subscription services are likely the future of gaming in a lot of ways, especially because of the, like you said, just the sheer cost of buying a game is so expensive, and it's only going to get worse, right? Like, gaming's not going to get cheaper as time goes on. You know, like,
it's just gonna get more expensive.
Yeah, it's only getting more and more expensive, and I think that's the thing that, like, so maybe to your point a bit more, Rick, where like I could see an idea of like needing to get more tentpole releases is that, like, if more competition comes into it, Game Pass will find themselves either needing to have to spend more money to get games onto their system, or they're going to have to really make sure that theirs is like the best already, right? Because like, look at what Netflix did. Netflix had that model, and it honestly seems like Xbox is trying to do the same thing that they did, where like they're trying to buy up IPs so that they'll have ownership of all the games that are on Game Pass and don't have to rely on buying in licenses as much anymore, right? Whereas, and like so far they've done a pretty good job. Like they do have a pretty big backlog of IPs now on their system already, and on Game Pass. But it's like, yeah, you need to start churning out more of these. And yet at the same time, it's like, I don't know, like, there's no magic wand you can roll, right? Like companies are companies. Like some of them are good and some of them end up sucking, right? And so it's like, I don't know what to say. Like you can't just suddenly make a company make the best games ever, right? Like it's like making games is fucking hard, man. And the reality is some games are gonna suck. Like Arcane is an incredible studio and they made a shit game. Like that happens, right? Like that's a studio that has made some of the best games out there. And like to see this from them is very concerning. And it's like, well, why the hell did this happen? And I would love to know the behind the scenes. Like I really hope someone eventually goes behind the scenes and like talks a little bit about this game, because what the fuck happened here, you know? Like it is such so concerning. But anyway, that's my thoughts here. And like I said, I don't know anything. I'm just a dude who is sick on the internet.
I mean, there'll be news that comes out. No doubt stuff like this cannot possibly stay quiet. I think ultimately Redfall is more concerning because it comes off the back of a period of largely sort of nothing after a bungled launch of Halo Infinite, after another sort of window of nothing. Forza is like the only thing that they've got that they can rely on in terms of being a banger every time.
Yeah.
And Starfield is just a big old question mark at the moment.
Yes.
And I think this is probably the biggest bone of contention. Let's say Starfield is God's gift to gaming. 9.8 out of 10. Fantastic game. Everything that we want it to be and more. Will that drive people to Game Pass? Will that drive people to buy an Xbox in and of itself?
I really think it will, because if it's as big as something like Skyrim, it fucking will. Because like that, think about that game. That game is goddamn everywhere. And like honestly, dude, like I don't want to underestimate Bethesda, because again, they are some of the most popular games on the planet. And like if this game lives up to its promise, and even if it doesn't, if it's glitchy in the funny way, streamers are gonna run through this thing like crazy. Like, I don't know. I really think it could be like a very big deal.
I have my reservations, even if it is great, and I have my reservations about that too. Let's see, I guess.
That's all we can do. You just gotta wait and see. Find out what happens.
This is going to be on the internet forever. One of us shall be vindicated. One of us shall look very, very silly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't
think as long as it isn't like another Cyberpunk, I think it's gonna like move units, like move systems.
I honestly think this is a pretty good indicator too that they're gonna do that with this game now, because they've seen how this is bungled, and so like they're probably looking pretty hard at Starfield, and they're like, let's just make sure this is ready before we pop this thing out, you know. To me, in a lot of ways,
then go.
I was like, I'm sort of happy this one gets bundled out poorly, because I'm like, all right, bodes well, because there's pressure on, you know, and pressure's good for these kind of things. Put the pressure, keep it up, make sure that you're working on this, give it the time that it needs, pop it out when it's ready.
I don't think they have that luxury. I think the mandate will be Starfield has to come out in November, because there's nothing coming otherwise.
Well, it's not coming out in November. They delayed it.
As in, like, what other games have Xbox got on the docket?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't really matter though. They delayed it. They're not going to push it out early if they don't. They already did that. What do you mean shaking your head? They already delayed the game. They're not gonna suddenly release it earlier.
No. I didn't say earlier, but I struggle to envision a scenario where, with nothing else to release in the run up to Christmas, the biggest sell time, what else do they put out? My sort of read on that is that there will be a come hell or high water, there will be a lot of pressure for this game just to come out.
Yeah.
This year, I don't think that they can push it further, and that potentially is another
I don't think it's
another
coming out
big
this
old
year,
question
though,
mark over the whole thing.
Isn't it?
I thought it was coming out November.
No, because remember it was wasn't it it was slated for November and then they
I thought it was
delayed
November last year.
Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, maybe it is coming out November this year. Then, well, let's check. Actually, I can just check.
The magic of Google.
No, I don't. No, it doesn't have a release date.
The game is scheduled to be released on September 6, 2023.
September 6th, is that the date? Oh yeah, there's
yeah, that's
6th,
the date.
September 6th. Yeah.
According to StarfieldGame.com.
See if they can hit it. Yeah. We'll see if they can manage that.
That's not that far away.
No, it's not.
There's only a few months.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It sounds like things are going well on it at the very least. They've been putting lots of updates and stuff. But we'll find out. I mean, I really hope it was released because I would like to play it a lot.
We always want good games.
This is one of those games that like I'm definitely like I'll be playing no matter what because like it's just up my alley. Because even if it's kind of busted, I still want to play it. It's just one of those things, right? Like I don't know. Redfall was one of those games that's like it's a multiplayer looter shooter. Like who cares? You know? There's already Borderlands, and even that's stale now. Well, should we wrap up? Should we go to everybody's favorite game?
Speaking of being busted but still wanting to play it.
How long to beat the game? Alrighty. Whoa, whose turn is it? Is it Rick?
Great question.
I think
it's a solid maybe.
It's you, yeah.
It is me. It certainly is me. And as a little recap for those of you who are joining us for the first time, or just want to be reminded how the game works. It is simple. I shall be the game master this week, which means Alex and Paula are going head to head. We are going to pick a random game on the HowLongToBeat website, and they are going to need to tell me what they think is the main plus, and the 100% completion times on the website. Whoever gets closest gets 1 point each for a total of 3 points, with another 2 points available in a sort of random question of my choosing about whatever game we pick. So a total of 5 points up for grabs. That one's DLC, so we're not going to do that. Ooh, interesting. Okay. So this week's game is a game called Heavenly Bodies.
I think I've heard of that.
This is a... I think it's like a boardy gamey one. I remember reading about it. I don't remember exactly how it works. Anyway, so main plus and completionist times for that, please. While I have a quick look and have a think.
Wasn't this like a physics game? Like one of those like silly physics games, wasn't it?
Yes, I'm confusing this with Stasis. Yes, it is a funny physics game. I think this was given away on PS Plus. I think I actually own this.
It's got to be because it seems so familiar to me. Like this is a PlayStation and PC game, I think, and I feel like I've seen this before.
So I can confirm that platforms are PC, PS4, PS5. What I cannot confirm, because I am wanting.
Yeah, I don't have a very good idea for this one, but we'll see.
I am wanting. So the most polled console for completion times for this game is PS5. I want you to tell me how many more people played this on PS5 than played this on PS4.
So wait, like the difference between the two?
PS5 minus PS4? Yes.
How many more people played this on PS5 than played it on PS4?
Played on PS5 instead of PS4. Okay.
Oh, Alex is pulling a face that seems to suggest he's got chewing tobacco in while he's trying to work out what's going on.
Exactly. That's who I am. Kind of man I am. Damn, I really don't know how many people have played this, so I'm going to say...
Oh, that's the fun. There's layers to this dealer's choice question.
All right. I have submitted.
Time's in from Alex.
Yeah, I don't feel very confident about this because I actually don't think I do know this game.
Mm.
Like I was like looking at it now, and I'm like, oh shit, maybe I don't actually know this one. But we'll see. Who
Gotta
knows?
say, it's making me want to play it.
It looks kind of cute.
It looked fun. Like I'm watching what's the name? A trailer on Steam. It looks very, very fun. Like you have to navigate using like the arms and the legs and the hands of the character, and you have to like do whatever stuff it is done on a space station, just moving like those pieces. Like
Nice. Nice. Well, has Paula submitted? Or
Paula's stalling
am
for
I
time.
just buying time? Yeah. So the weather lately.
sorry, I cannot type and talk at the same time.
Okay, it's a skill that very few of us possess, and one that I do not.
There you go. Did I send it to Rick, right? Yeah.
Oh, I hope so. If you send it to Alex, Alex's things are locked in anyway, so it's not the end of the world.
Yes.
So I have everybody's times. Let me throw the game times on a different screen so that I can better see what's going on here. So for the main story, Paula has said 5 hours.
Oh.
Alex has said 6 hours.
Oh.
Paula's spot on. Main time is 5 hours.
Yeah.
For the main on side quest, Alex has put 7 hours. Paula has put 6.5 hours, and the half hour gives it to her because the main plus time is 6 hours. And for 100%, Paula has said 10 hours. Alex has said 8 hours. Exactly 10 hours. Paula
Jesus.
with 3-0 so far today.
Not me. I got nothing.
Which makes the overall rankings very interesting because we're now looking at 6-4-5. So the 2-pointer. I can tell you that 15 people played this on PlayStation 4.
Oh.
The question was how many more people played it on PlayStation 5 than PlayStation 4. So the difference between those times. Paula says 15 more people played on PS5 than on PS4. Alex says 26 more people played on PS5 than PS4. I can tell you that the number of PlayStation 5 players is 23. So that's an 8-point difference. And Paula with the lower time gets those 2 points as well. It is a clean sweep for Paula.
Clean sweeps happen.
They absolutely do. And what that means for the scores is things just got very interesting.
Basically
all tied. And this is the first game of the second game week. And that puts
5, 6, 6.
That puts us almost neck and neck. Paula and I both on 6 points, Alex on 5 points. And next week it's Alex's turn to host. So next week we'll decide who gets to put their heads in front just a little bit. What an exciting edition of How Long to Beat the Game we are witnessing. History in the making, I tell you. And we'll have more of that next week. But until then, that is all. Bye. That's okay, Paula. You don't have to say goodbye to the audience.
Yeah, I was like, is she going to say goodbye or not? She's just going to...
I said goodbye, but the microphone didn't pick it up.
It's Discord's fault. Is it okay? Cool.
Okay, well, bye.